Well, hello and welcome to Hull Seahawks Behind the Curtain with episode 55. We're not, well, one of us isn't at the rink. Matty's sat up there in the VIP lounge. I'm back in the kitchen, unfortunately. It's been a while since we've done it like this, but Matty, thanks very much for joining me.
No, I appreciate it, mate. It's like old days in my kitchen and your kitchen, and we got them done. And like I say, no, it's obviously we try and get things out when we can. It's tough with work and all sorts. So yeah, we're just trying to bring some information to the fans, and yeah, lucky enough that you're doing it, mate. And yeah, appreciate it.
I say it's been such a busy summer, obviously, since we had a really good run of four episodes. Obviously, we spoke with Josh Hodgkinson, Tommy Spraggan, Geordie Stallard, and then the leadership duo that's Bobby Chamberlain and Owen Sobchak about a month or two ago now. It's been a lot of signings since. So as we get into sort of August, well, late June or late July, August time, there's a lot to wrap up. Obviously, the squad is pretty much put together now. With fixtures are released, we can finally sort of actually build up to the season. So, Matty, sort of before we break it down, maybe by positional group and things like that, we spoke, late last season, earlier in the off season about sort of the signings you wanted to bring in, what you thought was needed with the team. I know there was a very good, open and honest discussion about that at the, well, I can't remember what do we tag it as? The meet the
We
coach,
Yeah,
yeah,
coach's corner
coach's
or
corner. That was
coach's
it,
something like that.
up
Yeah.
in the bar right at the end of the season. But there's been a lot of good talking about this team, and now it's pretty much out there. We can finally have a good chat about it.
Yeah, it's like any sort of summertime, it's busy and you're trying to sort of get the team, right and the team that you want. And at the end of the day, it's always the same sort of thing. We'll see how it is when we start, right? And until then we don't fully know. I think got a good idea of exactly sort of what I'm bringing in. And at the end of the day, for me, like I said, this team, I really wanted to, as much as I could change the team. Essentially, is what I really wanted to do. And that doesn't mean just personnel. It means just the outlook of the team and what we was for a long time. And I think, yeah, people look at it and say, yeah, you're still very offensive and all that stuff. But I mean, there's reasons for the makeup of the team and why I've gone that way. Um, yeah, and I guess that's why we're doing this to sort of give people more of an insight.
We'll start off obviously with netties, and it's the positional group that hasn't had any change there. Obviously, Demetrius Mozzer and Jordan McLaughlin both returning. Um, Obviously, looking back on last year and how that sort of 1A, 1B experiment almost sort of panned out, sort of was there any thoughts in the back of your mind that might need to change? Was it you knew these two guys were the right guys? It maybe didn't quite work out last year with them, getting into the run of form that they maybe would have liked. Numbers wise, neither of them are, terribly, off what they would have probably called a successful season. They're both floating around the 88, 89, aren't they? And then we often say 90 is the golden number, but you know, what were your thoughts on sort of keeping them together and making sure that we press on with this duo?
Yeah, look, I think obviously there's a few reasons what sort of culminated in the end of the season review of exactly what I felt like the goaltending, overall went like last year. I think there's a couple of reasons. It's not just down to them individually. There's many things that go into it. I'd be lying if I said I was, overall happy with exactly their performances over the full stretch of the season. We've been a massive, backer of and Geordie, and we still believe that, he's still young enough and he's still had, many years here now, and we believe he's going to come through and be, a top goalie in this league, and that position's really difficult, and for someone like that so young that's still learning his game and still working on becoming the goalie that he wants to be, it's difficult. And so bringing in Dima was, really to help Geordie, and to really sort of, just solidify that position. I'd be lying again if I said it, it fully worked last year. I think the dynamic of them two, probably needs a little bit of work. Being totally honest, I think it was a tough one for them, more Geordie than Dima, to sort of accept that situation, which if you look at it is, it's been his net for 2 years, and then, to bring 3 years to bring someone in, it's sort of tough for him to accept that, right? And he is young, and he's got a fiery attitude at times, and which is great. But it also, yeah, I think it sort of did make his game sort of go off at times, and I think that's the biggest learning point from last year. For me, it's got to be more of a team approach from them two. Dima is look. I still believe Dima is one of the best top five goalies British wise in this league, and that's simply why I brought him back. He was just below 90% last year. I felt like he was the better performing goalie out of the two. And look, I think for me, it's a case of you've got to go with what works and what got the most results, right? And for me to be able to bring Dima back, who again, like I mentioned, I think he's still a top five goalie, British wise, and we're lucky that we can bring him in. I think Geordie's got the potential to go on and do that as well. And I think this is something that I believe can push Geordie on and help him get to that point. Um, the other side of that is the style of play and the way that we play. It is difficult for our goalies. There's no doubt about it. We are going to give up chances. We play, really, tight gap game, and we are aggressive on pucks everywhere. And that again, like I mentioned before, in talks, that's where I believe the fall off has been for this team is not quite having the numbers in depth and quality in depth, and purely just down to fitness levels and energy to be able to produce that style of play that I really want us to play. So and I mentioned it, I'm not going to compromise on the style of play. I've sat with that. We've talked about it at length. Whatever you want to call it, heavy metal. I know we jump on that back, but it's not the style of play that I'm going to change. It's being able to bring in what I believe are the right pieces to be able for us to play that system successfully. With what we've added in terms of the forward depth, I believe we've got probably three of some of the best lines in this league now. And I think the fourth line that we've got as well is going to be, again, another really, really good line. So, that's the first thing, for having four proper lines that are going to play every night, which will be, that's an every night thing. It's not going to be some nights and then other nights, which we know has happened in the past. As soon as you get it with an injury or a suspension, which we know happens, you really are looking at the depth of the team and going, wow, we're struggling here. I.e. in playoffs, we've talked about it at length, but, missing Bobby to a piece of that top six there's no replacing it. So, I had to basically really think about where we lack as a team. And, from the outside, I know I get it. I know exactly why people would think that's not where you lacked. But again, like I mentioned, I think I know my team pretty well. And I know sort of, the game is not just played, forwards don't just play forward and D don't just play D. It's a full five-man unit, and the way that we defend is with everybody. And if you don't have the energy to cover the ice and play at the aggression intensity that I want us to play at, you are going to get picked off with gaps, and you are going to, find it tough. And yeah, I mean, so that again is something we need to work on to give back to them goalies. They need a more solid five in front of them, and that's what I've said to Dima and Geordie, that we are going to be that next year. And I also need it coming back the other way from them. I know Dima's a 90 plus goalie, no doubt, and yeah, there's got to be a reason why he won that last year. And again, I think there's many reasons, but we've got to try and solve them problems and make sure that Dima is back to that level. And Geordie, again, it's something that I believe is important for his game now. He's fighting for his spot. He's fighting to get back to that net. and I think he's got it in him to do it. And it's a big part. It's a massive year for George because he can be a big piece of this and play a lot of games. They pretty much shared the games, even pretty much. Dima played a few more. But again, we need both of them. We need both of them to be solid this year.
Obviously, we mentioned it is about the full five-man unit in front of them, but most people will be looking at ahead of them will be the defensemen. Of course, it's so there's been a lot of talk, not just from Seahawks fans. I know that there's a few fans, particularly of some Milton Keynes Lightning and Leeds Knights fans, who have had a few jokes. Are sort of the way we've gone in terms of imports this year. Not taking an import defenseman, going with the Brits at the back. Matty, before we sort of go through the guys, I know you on social media, obviously you're quite active on the social media. You know that, you're quite happy in your decision and you're ready and waiting for the end of the season to hopefully be able to give it back a little bit because you're pretty confident in the way you've gone.
Yeah, I mean, look, social media is one of them places that it's there to be done, right? It's funny. I don't get angry about any of it. I think it's funny and fair play. Like I said a million times, with more people talking about the league and having an opinion on it, it's better for the game. Um, do I take any of them opinions, as do I ever listen or do I ever think that they're right? No, absolutely not. They're definitely not right. But it's funny to listen to them and what have you. But again, like I keep saying, we'll see. These fans having an opinion on our 12-10 games and all this sort of stuff. We'll just see what happens, won't we? Like I say, I've said it, and I think for me the biggest impact I could have had on this team was doing what I've done. Again, people having an opinion on our lineup from last year and probably what they think I should have done this year is interesting because I've had all these players now for, a lot of them over a year, 2 years. I know exactly what they can and can't do. And I also know what our D men have got in them. And again, it's a case of I'm excited because I think it's interesting to see that, I've made sure that we're a lot younger on D. We've got legs. Every one of them can skate and they can all move the puck. I believe that's very important now in ice hockey in general in any league, but this league is getting better. All the D need to be able to skate and the style of play we play. It's tough. It's hard. It's hard on the D. They have to skate more. They've got to get up in the play. They've got to be able to get up and get back. So yeah, it's obviously a calculated thing. I'm not just picking people out of nowhere. I know sort of what I wanted the team to look like, and I'm happy with what we've got. It's like I say, we'll see. We'll see when we start.
Obviously, to run through the day, of course, four announced returnees from that group, including assistant coach Dave Phillips, of course. A lot of fans, were I think gutted not just for the Seahawks as a whole, not getting to see Dave, but for Dave himself last year that he missed so much time on the ice due to the injury that occurred. Josh Hodgkinson returning, cannot wait to see Josh for another full year because I think after a 23-24 season where it was very broken up for him, the spell at Whitley, the short spell in Hull as well, and a lot of time not on the ice. Tom Stubley, of course, fan favourite. And then we're going to get to see a whole lot more of Tommy Spraggan this season.
Yeah, again, look, it's like you know people underrating that decoys. I find it quite funny to be honest because I mentioned this before in another podcast, but if anyone thinks that that decoy is any worse than some of the decoy British wise that are out there right now, I'm struggling to find your opinion on ice hockey valid because look, what we missed last year with Dave is such a big loss that you can't quite actually quantify it because Dave had such a tough year. There was a lot of things going on. It wasn't just the injuries. There was a lot of things off the ice, and yeah, it was just a real tough time for him. it'll be completely different this year. We've had many conversations about it, and yeah, it's for me, it's exciting the fact that we're getting Dave Phillips because I don't think we got Dave Phillips last year. And for me, it's sort of a new signing. And I struggle, anyone to think that Dave's not an elite league an import caliber defenseman. Swindon have signed one in Ben O'Connor. Them two played together for a long time. Dave Phillips is yeah, he's still for me one of the elite British D men in this country. Forget elite league in this league. So everyone, you shouldn't underrate that. And the fact he's coming back healthy is going to be massive for us.
I still,
Josh,
just before we move on to Josh, I still remember, obviously, I get to do all these wonderful things, such as the podcast, the commentary, that sort of thing. But just being a hockey fan, I remember being back in a little cupboard, essentially, with you, Callum, and Dave last year, and the excitement of,
yeah,
what we thought was going to be. Unfortunately, didn't pan out that way, but hopefully, fans are now sort of hearing that this will be different, have
yeah,
that same excitement again.
yeah, mass 100%. I'm not going to go into detail with what exactly happened
Yeah.
last year with Dave. People who know probably do know, but look, it's a real difficult time for him, and he wants nothing more than to be back on the ice for Hull and us to be, that team that can be fighting for leagues and cups. So, yeah, he's healthy, fully healthy, and he'll be ready to go for pre-season. And I need Dave back not only for, the playing part, and that's the biggest part. I need him back on the ice because he's our number one D man and we need him there. But um, I also need him back, with the lads, the young lads, especially the D core, and that's his job. He's there to help the D. He's got a lot more experience in D than I have. He knows the game on D. He knows exactly the way that we want to play, and sort of completely, we talk about it, the style of play we want to play. We know what them guys need to do, and for me, there's no one better than Dave Phillips to be teaching these. The decor, they're all under 25. I think Stubbs might be 26 now, but they're all under 26. They're all young and they all need to learn and become, players. And there's not many people better to look up to than Dave. So yeah.
No, definitely not. And then, as you mentioned, Josh Hodgkinson, Tom Stubley, and Tommy Spraggan, all going to be back at the Ice Arena too.
Yeah, I mean, look, Josh, we know we love Josh, don't we? Again, underrated player. I think he's for us, I mean, he plays his best hockey for us. He loves it here. He can't wait to get back over here. And yeah, to have him for a full season properly, again, is almost like another new signing because we hadn't had that with him yet. So yeah, really excited for Josh. Great kid. Stubbs. Big year for Stubbs. I think Stubbs, has really got to now cement his place as a top British defenseman in this league. We've seen it in massive spurts, and he's had a tough time sometimes with his injury that he picked up last season, and then it flared up again this year. So, hopefully we can keep him healthy. But when Stubbs is right and playing his game, he's a really, really effective D man. Again, knows the style of play, good on the puck, and yeah, he's again just fits into the team what how we want to play. And again for me, the biggest signing and probably the most exciting one for me is Spraggs. I think it's such a massive piece that we're adding. And again, one that's gone massively under the radar. You cannot underestimate how good Tommy Spraggan is already, but how good he's going to be, in throughout the year and next year. I believe Tommy Spraggan is, as his age is the best defenseman at his age group. And I've seen his age group. I know there's other D men, but I think it's pretty clear to me that when you play in National One, I think he finished top in points for D. But as soon as he came into our game, into our team, and played them first few games, again, he just looked like, he was one of the best D men out there. Everyone that was watching could see how good his skating is, how good he covered the ice. He's so smart on the puck. The kid's in unreal shape. So yeah, really, really excited for Sprags. I think it's a massive piece we're adding.
And then, of course, two signings, both making their way down the M62 from West Yorkshire, in Dylan Hare and Christianis Regardless. Of course, we saw a lot of Leeds fans, from what I've seen online, obviously wishing those guys all the best. But I'll be honest, there's a few Leeds fans who would have liked them back. There's a few who don't seem to think that we've unearthed some stars here. Matty, what would your sort of reaction to be? Why have we sort of brought in Dylan and Christianis? What do you think they're going to bring to the team?
Yeah, so obviously start with Chris. I think we played obviously a lot against Leeds last year, and he's someone that I noticed, in a lot of them games, and there's no doubt that Chris has got, a lot to sort of pick up in his game and learn and to get to the level that I think he wants to be at. Um, there's many things I like about his game. He's a big kid. He skates really well, and he's left-handed. And for me, again, mentioning the Dave thing, to put him into this situation where he can learn and grow his game and become a better player, I think is important. And he's got the right tools for the sort of D-men that I want. And I saw something in him, something about him. He's got that aggression. He's got something there that I like in D-men, and I think it's, he's going to play tough. He's going to play hard around his own net, and that's what I like. So I'm real happy with Chris coming in. I think we've and look, he wanted to come here. He wanted to come here. It was one of them. I didn't go after him. He wanted to come here, so that's another massive plus for me that he chose. He wanted to come to this team. So, and pretty similar with Dylan. Obviously, following his brother, it's a massive part of it. I get that. Um, but I've been really impressed with Dylan over the past couple of years. I really, like his composure on the puck. I think he's one that can, don't make rash decisions and don't just whack the puck around walls and just whack it out. He's real composed. He's got the right sort of head for it. He can see a pass. And again, it's one that, like, I think, he wanted to come here, and I think he's one that sort of, I think we can bring his game on. Still really young. Again, I think, we get him in the right shape and get him fit for this season and put him in the right sort of situations. I think you've got, a real good player, and he's won two leagues. I mean, what more do you need to know about, adding winners like them three that are all coming in? They've all won. They've been around winning teams, and yeah, like I say, look, moving from Leeds to us is always going to be a little bit of an eyebrow raiser, but like I said, they want to come to us, and that's exciting for me. That we've got these young lads that want to come to us.
I say we may touch upon defenders a little bit later on as well. A couple of the latest additions to the Hull Seahawks. But let's move on to the forward group now. To the 12 that are announced as of sort of early July. Alex Kent being the 12th man into that group, of course, with the four import forwards, the thing that, surprised quite a lot of people. A lot of people thought there'd at least be a defenseman on there, but, for loving the decision to go with the four, obviously, three of them that we know very, very well. One of them that we've already got to have a bit of a chat with, and that Johnny obviously knows very, very well, in Johnny Stallard. And obviously, just some great depth behind them, which is, as you said earlier, is sort of the key to going into this year that we've been able to add so much depth.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a decision that I went into quickly. I obviously spoke to a lot of players and a lot of different players. And at the end of the day, I came to the decision that, if I couldn't get the players that I wanted, and this is British players, by the way, that sort of at that point I was trying to get, I had to change the plan. And this is sort of, the best way I saw our team, improving on last year, basically. And for me, bringing Geordie in again, I think it's another one, and it sounds like I want everyone to talk about us. I don't, but he's massively underrated. This, the Stallard signing. I know there's a lot of talk about the Telford lads and all, these boys, but you look at his resume, it's crazy up until COVID. And look, I think bringing him in, he's a true centre. And you you need true centers throughout your team, and we've got now, 3 or 4 proper, natural or five centers that can always play that role. He's going to bring us control. He's going to bring us experience in high leagues. And I think he's going to be a real addition to our team. And we said this last year about having a top six and having two first lines, and I think it's pretty clear now that we have got that. And excited about the Cali situation and bringing Cali into that as well, because I think he's shown that he can put up numbers in this league playing with the right players. And yeah, excited for him to come in as well and prove that. But yeah, what it really did, and the biggest thing for me, was be able to have the depth and quality in that third line. And honestly, like for me, that's going to be the real key to the team. In being able to have, Huey, Bones, Brooks, these types of players play a third line role. And it's not a traditional third line role. It'll be, similar to Florida. Everyone knows I like their style of play and what they do, but very similar to that. I want them to dominate teams, and I want them to be on the front foot. Huey's still, got plenty of game left. We know how good Bonner can be. And I think Brooks this year is going to be a massive breakout year for Brooks. Turning 19. He's extremely fit at the minute. He's been skating every week. And I'm real excited for him, because the other part of it is Brooks, for the past couple of years has been, and no disrespect to anyone that he's played with, but he has had to play down the lineup a little bit. We've always talked, me and you, haven't we, about the top six for Brooks. And, you know, being totally honest, I think if Brooks gets in a top six, I don't believe that's a team that's going to win the league in this league. And that's not nothing against Brooks. I just think, these teams now, the top teams in this league, are really good. And I think, but what that does allow me to do is be able to put Huey and Bones with Brooks, which basically brings the offensive side, and being able to let Brooks be offensive with them guys as well. I think it's huge. I played that line together a little bit at the end of the year for the playoffs, sort of with this in mind. So I just wanted to see sort of how it went, and on it, I thought it was the best line. Obviously Bobby was missing, so it was a different look. But yeah, I thought that line together, did really well. So yeah, I think it's exciting, and I think yeah, it just gives us a lot more options.
And in terms of the only other addition we've not really mentioned, Ethan Hare as well. Obviously first of the brothers to be announced, but the two Hare brothers, they'll know Tommy Spraggan as well. I think there is a bit of a difference in age group, but it's that Billingham Academy that have come through,
Yeah.
to get to here.
Yeah, I think with Ethan, like I say, I played that year with him in Leeds, and I think he is someone I think has grown massively over them past 4 years. He's played a role in Leeds, a real specific role that I think, Ryan Aldridge is sort of, he's relied on Ethan to play that solid role for him, and I think he's done a great job. He's someone that's got a lot of game in him as well. He's not just that player. He can be offensive, and he can be on the puck. But I think for me, he's, sort of in that Towns role where you can literally play him against anybody, and he'll do a job on him. Good in the face-off dot, can play hard. And yeah, like I say, I think he can be a real solid piece. And again, to be able to fill out the lines like that and have someone like that to a third or fourth line, whatever it ends up being, I think is a big plus for us.
No, as I say, the players we've gone through, and it is exciting that there's so many names that you can't really sort of in your head say who's going to be these the second, third, fourth line at the moment. How it's all going to shape up. There's a number of names that could float between them. Obviously, you've got to think in your head. Obviously, the four imports plus Bobby, obviously going to be on those top two. But sort of from there on in, there's a lot of guys who can be fighting to make their claim on the spots, isn't there? Obviously, Alex and Declan, who have not really had a chance to mention too much about them, but the two young lads who've been with us from the very start. They weren't probably meant to be at that time, but and we had to rely on those guys, and obviously they're reaping the rewards of how they've improved over the last sort of two and a bit full seasons with the Seahawks.
Yeah, massively. That's it. And I think again, like sort of, what will be different next year. Something we've never had is that true depth. So no one's place is a given. They're all gonna have to work and play for their spot. And whether you're a first line guy or fourth line guy, it's we've got enough players now in quality that if you're not playing the right way and the way I want them to play, then you're not going to get the minutes, and that's simply something I've not been able to do. I've had to overplay players, and I believe that's been the biggest sort of reason why later in the year that we've maybe fell away and not had that full push for a league or for playoffs. So yeah, like everyone's going to have a role and a chance, and we're going to be solid throughout, but at the end of the day things can change. We've got lots of different players that are going to come in and want to play in spots, right? So yeah, everyone's going to have to be ready to go.
No, it's certainly going to be exciting stuff. And I say the two guys we've got to mention, it's been the latest additions, some of the youngest additions to the side, but arguably some of the most exciting. It's two guys who are signed on long-term deals with the Elite League's Manchester Storm. Josh Crawley and Noah Karininen. I will get the pronunciation of that down at one point.
Yeah.
Apologies, Noah, if you are.
Glad you will, because I won't.
Yeah, it's something I will make sure I nail that on the first commentary. I take
Yeah.
pride in that. But yeah, Noah and Josh, obviously such exciting talents. We've seen, bits of them up and down through.
Please call that reception, please. All that Kane to reception.
Cheers, ice rink.
Bit of a cameo there for the ring, but it
Yeah,
happened in the last filming as well. But
yeah.
those two guys, you've seen the best of them through GB under 16s, 18s. You see them, down at Telford last year. Noah, as you said to me off air, Matty, looked incredible when they came to Hull the other year. Sorry, didn't have a great time last year with injuries as well, Noah. But so exciting to get those guys joining this roster.
Yeah, again, it's again, two young players that I think are real, exciting players and ones that I think can be, top players in this league. And obviously the relationship we've got with Manchester is good. And it helps both clubs that, we can obviously we've had it before. We've took Johnny, we've had players going there and practicing, and it's good to have that relationship because obviously, look, it's we want these players to want to get higher and want to get to that next level, and it only makes the players and the team better. Noah is one that I'm extremely excited about. I think he's got a load of upside. I think he's a young defenseman that is a very good skater, sees the ice really well, and I think it's going to add a massive amount to our team. And again, young. And like the decoy, it's all going to be young. They're all going to be able to skate, so he fits them all perfect. And yeah, Josh is another one who sort of reminds me of myself a little bit. He's little and he's got a bit about him, and I know he's one that wants to get on the puck and be aggressive and go after the puck, and I like that. I think that's again another good part and a good piece that we need. And again, it's just more competition on the team. It's more depth and more players coming in wanting to play and play good is good for everybody. And yeah, I think them two, yeah, great two pieces to add for us, helping their careers and obviously helping Manchester, but it'll help us massively next year. And yeah, excited for it.
No, I'm very, very much looking forward to it. I say we're only, depending on when this gets released, we don't quite know yet. Weeks on, I think maybe a month or so away until we get to see the guys on the ice. The first time we're going to get to see the guys on the ice. Matty, last question. You excited for the testimonial yet? Yeah, there's a few names already out there.
I'm excited. I've got finally got some confirmations on players that are coming over. Obviously, we've announced tens and Silves. Um, Stevie Lee and Liesdes, I think, have been announced already. We've got sort of a few more that are coming back from sort of them Stingrays days and sort of my junior days as well. So yeah, it's going to be a good night. It's going to be a good night. Obviously, the idea of it is going to be playing against, the team for next season. So there'll be a little bit of mix in there to make the game sort of competitive. But at the end of the day, it's going to be just a night of sort of celebrating Hull and what have you. So it's going to be a good start to the year. Gets everyone together. Everyone can have a good night after it. Everyone gets to know each other properly, and Bobby will probably fight someone or something. So it'll be good. So excited to see it, and yeah, it'll be. I just hope obviously people come and see it, and not, whether it's for me or it's not. It's just about the team, right? It's about Hull, and all the players that have been here, and there's plenty on the team for our next season that have done a lot for the game and a lot for us. So yeah, it'd be nice to see a lot of people out there and supporting us.
No, I really cannot wait for it. It'll be a great event. I say if you haven't already, make sure you get your tickets for that one, and hopefully, we might find time around that week as well to maybe get a bit of a special Matty Davies Testimonial podcast in, and a bit of a pre-season preview as well. It'd be good timing for it. But thank you very much, Matty. Episode 50, I think it's at 55 in the bag now.
That's the one. Yeah, yeah, we're doing all right, mate. We're trying to crack them out when we can, aren't we?
I say there'll be a whole lot more. I say over August coming into September and the season kicking off. Really cannot wait for that. But that's all from behind the curtain here on episode 55. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you all very, very soon.